What's up, y'all? How you doing? Welcome back to the channel. And if you saw my reel that I put up the other day, you probably know what the subject of this video is going to be today. That's right, we are talking about the mouthy little governor of New Mexico who just recently decided that the residents in her state just did no longer require their Second Amendment rights. Why, you may ask? Well, that's interesting. Because she said so. So just to clear a couple things up, I'm just going to give you a little backstory on what happened in New Mexico over the past week or so. And I was going to put this video out earlier, but there have been some very interesting developments that I had to just go back and recover, so we'll get to those later. Basically, the gist of it is that last week, the governor of New Mexico, Governor Grisham, decided that for the next 30 days, no one in the city of Albuquerque or the surrounding Bernalillo County is going to be allowed to carry a firearm for any reason whatsoever. Now, this includes, mind you, the legally licensed people who actually do have a state license to carry, whether it be concealed or open, which in the state of New Mexico is 100% legal. In fact, one could argue that the Constitution of the state of New Mexico is more broad in terms of allowing people to carry and keep and bear arms than the United States Constitution. There's actually a clause in the New Mexico State Constitution that says there shall be no law restricting any county, city, or I believe, what was the word they used? Municipality, something along those lines. There shall be no law which abridges the right of the people to keep and bear arms for any reason whatsoever, or something along those lines. I may be paraphrasing a bit here. Basically, the state constitution says that the state cannot make any law which abridges in any way the residents' or the citizens' ability to keep, bear, and carry arms. Now, this was lost on the current governor of New Mexico, Governor Grisham, because after the unfortunate killing, I'll add, of a 11-year-old child in the city of Albuquerque in a road rage incident, she decided that for the next 30 days she's going to issue she calls it a temporary suspension, but let's be honest here, it's a ban, on any and all carry of firearms within the city of Albuquerque. She said in several interviews that New Mexico has one of the highest rates of gun violence in the United States, which is just an outright lie. New Mexico is the 13th or 14th state, I believe, in gun violence, and more than half of their gun violence homicides, or I should say gun violence deaths, are actually suicides. Homicides are less than 34%, and that's the majority. Interesting there. But this is typical Democrat gun control. We all know it's all lies and BS. It never works. It's never intended to solve any problems, just like this measure is not intended to solve any problems. In fact, in several interviews, Governor Grisham herself actually stated that the criminals will not abide by this new rule. They will still be carrying their guns. They will still be carrying out crimes. The only people that are going to abide by this rule, potentially, or at least she thought they would be New Mexico citizens who previously had the right to keep, bear, and carry arms, whether openly or concealed, with or without a permit in the state of New Mexico. So she knows this isn't going to stop anything, but I'm getting off on a tangent here. Let me go back to the backstory. She decided that after this unfortunate killing of this 11-year-old child, she was going to issue this suspension. She further stated that she did not want local or state municipality law enforcement to be involved in enforcing this law. Now, she's amended that since then, but I believe in her initial statement she said she wanted the state police, the New Mexico State Police, who, by the way, report directly to her office. They have no local oversight. She wanted them specifically to enforce this rule. Kind of makes you wonder there, doesn't it? See, a police force which reports only to the state taking power over local law enforcement by the order of the governor to violate the Second Amendment rights of an entire, well, not yet an entire state, I'm sure she was building up to that, but at least one city's residents because the governor said so. Yeah, bad things have happened throughout this country's history when they even suggested trying to do something that she just did. But she went ahead and did it. Here's the kicker. Just the other day, after the entire state came out against her, after several open carry protests were carried out in the city of Albuquerque, directly protesting this rule, even the sheriff of Bernalillo County himself came out and said, we will not be enforcing this law. There is no way we can enforce this new rule because it is unconstitutional, and every sheriff in these United States swears an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States above all. And this rule violates the Constitution 6 ways to Sunday and twice on Sunday. And here's what the governor actually had to say. Now, just in case you missed that, she just said that she does not need a sheriff's lecture on what is and is not legal or what are and are not her powers as governor. Let me say it again for the people in the back. She just told a sheriff, who, by the way, constitutionally is the ultimate law enforcement authority in their county. They supersede the governor, they supersede the state police, they supersede the FBI. They can tell the feds to go pound rocks if they want to. She just told that sheriff that she does not need a lecture, she does not need his advice to advise her on what is and is not legal and what are and are not within her powers as governor. Now, for those of you who have actually read the law in the on the federal level or on the state level, that is 100% just pure D bullshit. Because as governor, she does not have the authority to suspend constitutional rights in any way, shape, form, or fashion for any reason. She is trying to claim that due to this killing of the 11-year-old and several other occurrences of gun violence in the state of I can't talk, I'm so pissed. In the state of New Mexico, specifically in the city of Albuquerque, that she now has the ability to declare a public health emergency over what she calls gun violence. This is absolute BS because gun violence is not a public health emergency. In fact, I hate even using that term, but that is the current nomenclature, so I'm forced to use it. Now, you might recall they tried this during COVID. The CDC has tried several times to declare a nationwide public health emergency over gun violence. What have they tried to do every time that they tried to declare one of these emergencies? Well, you guessed it. Since it's a public health emergency, well, apparently they think that that means the federal government now has the right to just toss the Constitution out the window and they can now confiscate your weapons, they can now violate your rights, violate your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights, your Fourth Amendment rights, your Fifth Amendment rights, your Sixth Amendment rights, your Seventh Amendment rights, basically the entire Bill of Rights with the exception of possibly the Third Amendment, and I'm sure that'll come into play somewhere. This is ridiculous, guys. It's absolutely ridiculous. She does not have the power to do this, and she admitted she does not have the power to do this. On CNN, of all places, just the absolute bastion of liberal Democrat anti-gun sentiment, on CNN, they called her out on this, asking her, do you actually have the power to do this? And her response was, we'll see. She knows this is unconstitutional. She knows this is illegal. She knows she was a lawyer, for crying out loud. She knows the law. She knows this is not legally possible or allowed. Now, very likely and very much in my hopes, she faces a future impeachment over this, and she does not occupy her current office for much longer because she absolutely does not deserve it. But one thing she does know for absolute certainty, this will go to court. That's going to take time. The court system is ridiculously slow in the United States. It will take months, possibly even years, for this to go to a deliberation in a New Mexico court, then a circuit court, then possibly the Supreme Court. In the meantime, she can just keep re-upping these suspensions. Oh, with another 30 days, another 30 days, oh, a year, 6 months, 2 years, however long she wants to do it. She can just keep doing this as long as she's in office. And until the court strikes it down, she can keep doing this. She can just keep violating the rights of her residents. She can keep violating the rights of her constituents as long as they allow her to, and they allow her to sit in that office. Now, again, I hope that's not for much longer. I actually have friends in New Mexico. I used to be a cowboy actor. There's a lot of cowboy shows out there that involve walking around with six-shooters on your hips. You go out in the street, you do gunfights. These people have lost their livelihoods because of this stupid rule that everybody knows will do absolutely diddly squat to stop crime. And they're not the only ones. There's a lot of trainers out there. There's a lot of competition shooters. There's a lot of fun shooters. There's a lot of people like myself who just do small-time instruction. We teach people on how to safely carry guns and fight against the criminals that she is so worried about. And now she's not even allowing people to do that because apparently you can't carry a gun in Albuquerque for the next 30 days or however longer she decides to extend this. Why? Because she thinks it's going to stop criminals. Even though she specifically said in several interviews, I'll try to find the links, that the criminals will not abide by this. It will not stop crime. What it will do, it'll create victims. Lots and lots of victims. And that's always the goal for any gun control law. People know that these laws will not do anything to stop criminals from being criminals. It has never worked anywhere it has ever been tried. And now I know people in the comments are going to bring up, well, what about Australia? What about Great Britain? Great Britain's a great example. They tried exactly what Governor Grisham is trying to do in New Mexico on a national scale over in Great Britain. They went out, they confiscated all the guns. For a minute there, they completely banned the ownership, especially the carry of guns. There's actually so many restrictions over there that it's borderline impossible to even own one, and when you do own one, there are huge restrictions on what kind you can have, where you can have it, where you can shoot it, where you can store it, how much ammo you can have, what kind of ammo you can use, barrel lengths, attachments, all these things. You have to jump through so many hoops as a British gun owner, it's almost not even worth the effort, which is the point. Did that stop crime? Absolutely not. Crime exploded overnight in Great Britain after they carried out this gun ban. It exploded overnight in Australia. It's exploding overnight in Serbia as we speak because they just enacted a widespread gun ban. It hasn't taken off in New Zealand yet because even though their crazy dingbat new prime minister tried to do a gun ban, credit to my New Zealander brothers over there, they're just not complying. They're saying, nope, piss off, we're not doing this. It has gotten so bad in Great Britain, is the example I'm going to use, that they are now mulling a rule in the British Parliament to ban kitchen knives. You heard me right, kitchen knives. Why? Because kitchen knives are the #1 weapon used in illegal crime, in murders, assaults, rapes, you name it, because criminals know the loopholes. They know that even though they can't get their hands on guns anymore, they can go down to the local hardware store, pick up an 11-inch kitchen knife, and go stab somebody with it. They can carry around a screwdriver and do the same thing. You can get arrested in Great Britain right now for carrying a box cutter without a written note of approval from either your local police or your boss saying, yes, this guy works in a warehouse. He does some kind of blue-collar job where he needs a box cutter. That's why he has a box cutter. That is how bad it has gotten since they got rid of their guns. That's how bad it will get in New Mexico if this is allowed to go forward. Now, I mentioned before, the Bernalillo County Sheriff has absolutely refused to enforce this law. Credit to him. Mad respect, dude. Seriously, mad respect. He's not alone. Almost all the sheriffs in New Mexico have said, we will not put up with this. This is illegal. This is unconstitutional. We won't do it. Rightly so. The New Mexico State Attorney General has struck down this rule, ruled it unconstitutional, and has at least tried to place a stay on this rule where she can neither enforce it, nor tell the state police to go out and enforce this rule, nor can she order any law enforcement officer to enforce it in any way, shape, form, or fashion, which of course she's fighting back against. And of course she is fighting mad. She has hit the talk show circuit. She has gone to all the interviews that anybody has asked, trying to defend this position, and she is failing miserably. I mean, seriously, miserably. It's gotten so bad, guys. Even people like David Hogg. Seriously, that guy. Remember him? Probably not. He's not very remarkable. He happened to be within a square mile of a mass shooting in Florida, and suddenly he was, gifted a degree from Harvard and all that crap. Fancies himself an anti-gun activist. Even he came out and said, this is unconstitutional because, and I quote, there is no public safety emergency clause, or should I say, how did he put it? There is no public safety emergency exemption for the United States Constitution. Coming from an anti-gunner, that is amazing, guys. When you screw up so bad as an anti-gun Democrat liberal that your own side is calling you out on your hypocrisy and your unconstitutionality, you done effed up. Seriously, that is a new level of low. I have been fighting this fight for going on 15 to 20 years at this point, and I have never seen anybody screw up so bad that they pissed off the pro-gunners, the Republicans, the conservatives, and the anti-gunners. She's taken fire from everywhere. And yes, I know the irony in that statement. Now, with all that being said, what does this mean going forward? Well, one, it means that she is not going to back down on this. She has stated it repeatedly. She is going to keep pushing this. She is going to keep abusing the power of her office. She's going to keep basically performing outright treason before the very eyes of the country, before the very eyes of her state, and proving herself every single day to be unfit and not mentally stable enough to hold the office she currently occupies. Now, what does it mean for our side? Keep resisting. Do not comply with this. If anybody's watching this in New Mexico, do not comply with this rule, because I know for a fact that if she is allowed to keep this up, she is going to make it statewide. It's not going to stop at Albuquerque. She's going to keep re-upping the suspension every 30 days, every few weeks, however often she wants to do it, and her ultimate goal is to take this statewide. And I'm going to put my tinfoil hat on here for a second. This was a test run. This was just to gauge our response, to see how we would take it. They picked a safe blue state that has pretty good gun laws. Like I said, the Constitution of New Mexico is actually broader in some ways than the United States Constitution, which is an excellent thing. but it's not one of the bastions of gun culture, you could say. Now, I've been to New Mexico several times. I have driven through it more times than I can count. I have many friends there, as I said. Not the most densely populated state. Usually the clusters of population, you could say, are right around Albuquerque, Santa Rosa, and down in the south you got down towards El Paso, right there on the border with Texas, down in that area. Mainly it's Albuquerque. About 98% of that state is just wide open poker table flat desert. So not a lot of people to resist this. Not a huge gun culture, you could say. We've all seen the warnings that COVID lockdowns are coming back. They're already trying to declare public health emergencies over this new strain, BS 24/7, whatever they're calling it. And we all know that since 2020, they have been trying to push gun control like no other time in our history. Our current president is the most anti-gun president that has ever occupied the office in the history of our country. He has tried everything he can think of to try to do away with or at least whittle down the Second Amendment as much as he possibly can. Seeing this in a Democrat state from a Democrat governor, the side that has most vehemently tried to do away with the Second Amendment and to take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans over my entire lifetime, longer than my lifetime, that's very scary, guys. As I said, this was a test run. New Mexico was a testing ground to see what they can get away with on a state level. This governor came out of nowhere and suspended the Second Amendment rights of an entire city, an entire county. I guarantee, as I said, she has plans to try to do this on a state level if you let her. If she is not held to account, if the state authorities and other governors and the Senate and whoever else you can think of, anyone in a position of power, if they do not rein her in, she's going to keep abusing her power. She's going to keep taking away your rights until she has taken them all away. She has already said that the Second Amendment does not apply in an emergency right before she declared an emergency. She even said that the First Amendment does not apply in an emergency setting when people try to oppose her, go out and protest, lodge protests on social media, in the State House, wherever. She tried to say that they do not have a First Amendment right to defend the Second Amendment because it's an emergency. We all know the meme, guys. As long as they convince you that they can take your rights away during an emergency, they will keep manufacturing emergencies as an excuse to take away your rights. If you let it happen in New Mexico, it's going to happen in California. California's been trying to do this exact thing for years. In fact, Gavin Newsom, the current dingbat governor of that state, he has tried to propose a 28th Amendment to the United States, which basically bans or repeals the Second Amendment. It would borderline ban all gun ownership and severely restrict whatever's left over. They know, or we know rather, that they want to do this. We have known that they want to do this for decades. They will not stop. They will keep coming. If we let them go ahead with another round of COVID lockdowns, how long before they decide to declare a public health emergency where you have to stay in your home, but just for your own safety, we'll take those guns. Just for your own safety. Maybe you can't own these, but we'll let you have something like this. How long before they break out the old tried and true save the children, which is exactly what Grisham said, which is exactly what they were saying in the 90s when they passed the 1994 crime bill, which is exactly what they were saying in the 30s when a certain not-so-nice party, let's call them the Yahtzee party, decided to disarm their entire country before killing 9 million people. It's exactly what they said in a little country called Russia. Another gentleman with a very funny mustache who occupied a certain office during the 1940s. It's exactly what he said before he disarmed his entire country and killed 20 million people. It's exactly what they said in China before they disarmed their country and killed over 100 million people. We've seen this happen too many times in history. Always during a time of crisis, when the government, whether it's local, state, federal, what have you, when they step in and decide that they know more than you do the proper way to exercise your rights, they get to decide which rights you do and do not have. They get to decide what you can do and what you can't do. They tried it over here about 250 odd years ago. A bunch of gentlemen in red coats marched out to a little village called Lexington and another little village called Concord with the express intention of confiscating 3.5 tons of powder and I forget how many stand of small arms, but they were coming out for the guns. They were coming to confiscate those guns because they didn't think that the lowly peasants and colonists deserved to have those weapons. We all know how that turned out. Now, I'm not advocating for anything. I'm not saying anything bad's going to happen. Well, I'm saying bad things are going to happen, but not the way some people are thinking. Yes, I know you're watching me, FBI. How you doing? Man, I sounded conspiratorial there. But anyway, we all know what this entails. We all saw what happened in 2020. We've all seen what's happened for the last 2 or 3 years. But there's a war on self-defense going on. In fact, I've got a video coming up about that. There is a war on gun ownership. There is a war on your rights. And this what happened in New Mexico. This is the latest battle. If we lose this battle, they're coming for the other states. If we lose those states, they're coming for the Constitution. If we lose the Constitution, this country is over. I believe it was the great Dave Chappelle who once said, the Second Amendment is there in case the first one doesn't work out. This governor flat out said, you do not have a Second Amendment right if there's an emergency. You do not have a First Amendment right to protest against her suspension of the Second Amendment because it's an emergency. What did they take away from us in the last emergency? What did they allow to happen in the last emergency? We know it's coming, guys. If we don't resist, if we comply, if we let them get away with this, it will not stop. That's why I want everybody out there who's watching this video, who's keeping up with this, and then please keep up with this. If you're in New Mexico, call your senator. Call your state representative. Call your state senator. Call anybody who occupies any political office of any kind from either party. I do not care. Call them all up and tell them exactly what you think. Tell them exactly how this governor is abusing her power, is taking away your constitutional rights, and you are having none of it. We need to hold these people accountable. We need to stop it where it is, or it will spread like the cancerous plague that it is. I want everybody out there to stay strong, stay informed, and stay frosty, my friends.